welcome to my podcast, Shaping Your Journey. My guest in this episode is Andy Zildjian, drummer and CEO of the great cymbal company Sabian, based in New Brunswick, Canada. Andy speaks to us about his journey growing up in a family of cymbal makers. And most of us know how important it is, the quality and the level of cymbals that we use to create the sound we make. The sound. Very important. Here is Andy Zildjian. Hello, Andy. Thank you so much for being on my show, Shaping Your Journey. Before we get going on the actual, on the conversation and where you're coming from, just give us a little bit about where it started. What was that spark? What was that first thing that happened to you that got it all going?
Actually, it was over a few different periods. It started when I was in high school. I was going to be a professional hockey player. That was my future. It's what I really wanted to do. And I was doing okay. I got into junior A and did okay. And then I got injured. And from there, I sort of lost my way. I had worked at the family business in the shipping room and doing, scut work and things like that, and thought, well, this is fun. It's nice, and I like to meet drummers because they really are nice people. It's great, and I enjoyed that. And but I was kind of lost for a while, and I didn't know where to go after that career choice was taken away from me. So I joined the Army for a little while to get some direction, and I came out of there and started working up at the Sabian factory. And I knew that I liked the idea of working in the industry because I liked the people in the industry. But then when I started working at the factory and finding out why cymbals sound like they do and how we make that happen, it really, a passion just lit, because it is so cool to think that you can take this thing that's really just a bronze spring and change the way the energy goes in and out and around it and make it a completely different sound by just tiny little tweaks and little things that make such a tiny difference. So I fell in love with the idea of just the physics of how this works. And then I got really excited about the outcomes, listening to different cymbals and the way that they sound, and being able to hit one in a different direction and having it give a completely different sound than if you hit straight on as compared to sideways, or the way that you use different tippings on a stick, or hell, even this different tips that are on the sticks. I mean, for a while I was in love with Joe Colato because he had come up with the nylon tip, right? And I thought, this is so cool. And then as I started listening to it, going, actually kind of like the wooden tips. It gives a little more mellowness and some air to it. It's kind of cool and lets the sound out. And then the heating processes and how those changed and such. Like I can give you a couple stories about. Like the first day I was working up at the factory, I was working on what's called short rake, which is the cymbals are being heated up, the castings are being heated up, and then we take them out, we put them through a roller, and then we put them back in to heat up again. The way you take them out of the oven is with the short rake. So you're leaning right into 1600 degrees Fahrenheit, wow. Right? Wow. And you can see it rolling up. And I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of hot. And I was noticing like these little sparks, and I thought, wow, that's cool. I wonder what these sparks are from. And everybody's sort of chuckling. And as I'm putting the cymbals over, we get through what's called the first pull. So we go through the whole oven of cymbals, and they're back in there heating up. And the guy who was running it said, hey, Andy, you should head into the washroom. I'm like, well, why? What's up? Just go to the washroom. I went in, and those sparks were me having burned off all of the hair on the front of my face. And I had no idea. No. And I came out and I said, guys, what would have happened if I breathed in while I was doing that? And they went, oh, yeah, that would have been bad. Hey, thanks for the heads up. Really, totally appreciate that. But as I was doing that, part of my job was to also help to lower the rollers to a point where we are different thicknesses of each cymbal going through. And so I started asking the question, what do these do? How does that work? What's the difference? And finding out, how the heat affects everything, how the rolling affects everything, how the speed of you're putting through, how long you're heating it. It just so interesting that I fell in love with the whole idea of what we were doing.
Nice. And I remember, your father, Robert, he was Bob, he's such an amazing guy. I would sit with him at the shows and pick his brain, of course, and ask him all kinds of things. And he had the patience, like all the guys like Remo, Firth, all those guys who were such a great thing to meet up with them as a kid growing up and asking all the questions. And then finally, once I got to a point where I actually understood things and I got a lot more curious, then I would create my own sounds. I've always dabbled in this. But I'll tell you something, Andy, that most people don't understand. We drummers do, this particular one, how important the cymbals are, your choice of cymbals. Not just your choice, like just having really good cymbals, because it really affects the sound of music, period.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, how many times have I heard people saying, "Well, I'll travel with my drum pedal, my bass pedal, and my cymbals, and that's it." And but it makes a lot of sense to me. And not to degrade drums at all, but I mean, you can tune a drum a different way, and you can make it sound differently. Each one can be changed. Its personality can be changed by what you do to it, by how you affect the head, what type of head is on it, the tuning, etc. Whereas a cymbal, that's it. What you have, that's your voice. And when you find your voice, when this is who you want to, how you want to express yourself, and this is who you are musically, that's that. You can't just replace that.
No. It's not, and it's not just a sound, it's a feel, it's a texture. It's a nuance that you can control. I mean, I can go on and on. I
gotta tell you about Jeff Hamilton.
Okay.
So Jeff comes up and he's playing the cymbals and that he's working on trying to get the hammer tone line, and he's saying these sound great, they really sound great, but it doesn't feel right. And we were going, okay, so how do we do it? He goes, no, I want more of a buttery feel. So typically with us, it takes probably like about, if somebody's at the factory, 3 to 4 days to come up with a complete set of cymbals that is really the sound that they're looking for. Our R&D can be that quickly. With Jeff, we had, I think at that point we were doing 6 different cymbals. We had 4 of them within 2 days, and the last 2 took like 6 months. All because, well, he wasn't there, so we had to ship back and forth. But all because, yeah, they sound great. I want that feel just a little bit different. Wow. I mean, at that point, what you're doing is it's Jenga. You're changing it completely so that you get the same sound on the outside, but you're moving all the pieces underneath so that it is affected differently. It's not the easiest thing, but I got to say, our guys, Mark Love, he made it work.
Oh yes, yeah. No, I remember going to him. I had a series. I mean, I said, "Can you make a series for me?" And he did, which were, because I play a lot of frame drums as well as drum set, and I combine them. I says, one problem I have is when I'm playing and I want to do a crash, I need to be able to just do this, and and the cymbals that are there are great if you're using sticks, but I need something that's like shh. But that you have that quick response, like the attack itself, but you don't want it to last forever, and you want it to be like a velvet sound. And he looked at me. He says, "Okay." So he made me these beautiful cymbals from 6 to 14, and I love them. And guys would come to my studio or hear me or work with me, and they come over and they hit them. These cymbals I have set up on a part, like Walfredo Jr. came here and he's playing. We were doing a thing together, and he says, "I want that cymbal." I says, "Don't you even think about it. Call Sabian. I think they have the number. You can get it, but don't you even touch that." Because it's so, I mean, having somebody like Mark who gets exactly what you're talking about, and we talk in velvet.
Cool
we talk in.
You wanted this to be velvety, right?
Yeah.
Because and I had been talking with a few guys, Carl Perazzo and Richie Garcia about what was missing from our line of the El Sabor, right? Okay. And they were saying, well, I can't go directly from congas onto the cymbal. I want to be able to hit it. So we came up with the picante, which is not velvety, right? That's much
Right.
more like, oh,
Yeah.
it just comes out and hits you hard. So it's cool being able to figure out how to make that different sound because you said velvety as compared to I want something hot and hard, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And I hear it. It's funny. Some
Mm.
people talk color. I
Mhm.
For me it's like butter. I mean, you can
Yeah,
understand butter.
that was Jeff Hamilton.
Yeah. I mean, we understand that concept. For me, the velvet is like
Yeah.
that, and that it doesn't last for a long forever, because
Mm.
when in your chord changes, if that note, because to me cymbals are notes, everything is a note. So
Yep.
if that note goes over to a wrong chord, to me it sounds weird. So it's got to be a short decay, because you really want just that punch, but it's got to be not a hard edge punch. It's got to be like that velvet or but you and it's interesting talking to the guys and people like you who get it. These-
Yeah.
I'll tell you a story, because I mean Sabian has been involved in our Cuba project for a very long time, and very supportive of it. So I'm there like 6-7 times a year. So one day I'm at this concert, and it was a Nutcracker suite that they're doing. And we had an orchestra with us that we took down. So I'm attending the Nutcracker suite, and in the concert I'm hearing every time the person hit a cymbal, I would go like this, and I would just it ruined it for my whole evening was ruined, because all I'm thinking about that's a wrong, is like being out of tune. So afterwards, I went to the edge, and I knew the percussionist. He looks up at me, and I looked at him, and I said, "What cymbal are you playing?" And he showed it to me. It was this old, decrepit thing. I said, "You're doing the show tomorrow, right?" So I said, "I'll be back." So I gave him a cymbal, and like he was calling me every day. "Oh, I don't know how much to thank you." I said, "No, thanks, Sabian, because that's the cymbal you need for that particular piece. Otherwise, it's wrong. It's
Oh
completely
God, yeah.
wrong."
I know exactly what you're talking about. How many times have I heard somebody hit something and go, oh, come on. There's no energy to that cymbal. What you're hitting just doesn't have the depth or soul. Or that's that one's a heavy metal cymbal, and it does not sound right where you're hitting it,
It
right?
doesn't fit.
Or in heavy metal, that's a really quick, nice cymbal. It doesn't have the power or the body to do what yeah.
Yeah, it
Listen to
doesn't
it a
fit.
lot. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, and I need you to know this, because at one point, when we've been working with the guys down in Cuba for so long, after years of it, I asked Oliver, actually. I said, "Oliver, tell me objectively, without me saying anything, what has changed now that everybody here is playing Sabian cymbals? Finally, everybody's sounding. I mean, everybody sounded great to begin with, but now you have these cymbals." I'm not doing a commercial here. I'm being serious.
Sure, you're not.
No. I'm serious. So I said, "Oliver, what has changed for you?" He says, "You know what has changed? I mean, because we know when we're playing if we feel good about something or not, or if we're fighting a sound. That's for sure. We know that. But when you feel good, you play better, you sound better, et cetera, et cetera." But he said something interesting that I had not really thought about in it, like not like that so much. But afterwards, it dawned on me. Of course, he said the sound of Cuban music has changed. And it did. I mean, in the recording, because then it starts from there, and everybody replicates it, and
Yeah.
then it sounds different. The
So
sound,
the rhythms are still the same. The energy is still the same, which is to
the
me the most
sound,
important part,
the
right?
sound is like almost like a better production
Yeah.
of the end result. That's what he was talking about, like the sound of Cuban music.
That's so good to hear.
Yeah, no, and and as a musician, as a percussionist, you feel good too. I mean, of course, you would feel good about that, but also as a musician, hearing that from other musicians about something that they do that they love to do is always nice to hear. It's a great conversation.
Well, I got to say, one of my favorite parts is being able to give of what we do is being able to give people the voice that they're looking for, to be able to express themselves artistically the way they want to. Get that feeling that when they finally have something like that, or can just really let out what they want to say and freely without any restrictions. God, that feels good.
Yeah.
It feels so good because now you're allowing people to take risks and to be able to expand the envelope and go beyond. And my favorite part about any new music or anything that has to do with performance is that when somebody's taking a risk and pushing the boundaries, God, that's exciting.
Sure.
And,
As it
yeah.
should be. As it should be. I mean, somebody comes in with an idea, and they've been thinking about it, whether it's Buddy Rich or whether it's one of us who has been thinking about a sound, an idea, and somebody's there to respond because we're still doing this, so it's important to us, right? But I have a question, Andy. Here's an interesting thing. I mean, your father was up in New Brunswick, and he had the factory there. But in that changeover to when you guys had to decide, I mean, I'm sure you were all in on that decision making, like starting over, that part of the journey, making cymbals in a different way that you thought of. I mean, maybe I'm saying this incorrectly, but the starting over thing, which is, I have a lot of respect for people who, in that kind of situation, they can start over and do it really well and differently.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I think that at 59 deciding to start all over again was really brave. And I got to say, I used to say to my dad often, like, I can't believe that you had the guts to go ahead and do it, except that I know you, right?
Yes.
Except that I know you. And the neat part about that was we had already had a factory up in New Brunswick. We were making, the Zilcos, and then we started making the harder to make cymbals, so that we knew if we needed to do anything differently, it wouldn't be difficult because people already in the factory already knew how to make the hard stuff. So to be able to make the things that were just run of the mill, let's call it, right? Not really,
Right.
but we'll call it that. Regular production stuff was quite simple. He knew that those people in New Brunswick where we were, they had the ingenuity, they had the work ethic. Not only that, but he was very confident in his own ability to be able to work with all of his friends that he had made around the world and in the industry to be able to bring something about. And he was absolutely right. It took a lot of guts to be able to say, I am leaving a battleship that is just floating along in a direction. It may not have a real, let's say, navigator, but it's just going to keep on going. I'm going to leave that and start something completely new because I want to have the integrity that I grew up with. I want to know that the instruments that we're making are fitting and the voices that people are looking for, not just what we're making, so take it, but this is what people are asking for. How do we make this right? How do we innovate in a way that gives people the sound and the voice that they're looking for? He had all of that real integrity that I was really proud of as I started learning more about it. Because as a kid, you get it, but you don't really get it. And then when you start getting into the industry and you start learning more and more about what that all actually meant, not just the leaving, but why and what he created in Sabian, it really filled me with not only a lot of pride, but I also understood the responsibility that I had to carry that on. Luckily, he and I our personalities are not that far off. So,
Yeah.
so it was easy to follow his path, but at the same time, not step in the exact same footsteps, creating my own footsteps, but going in the direction that he set. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but it's great to have had a person like that who is so convinced of what they're doing and have the ethic, the work ethic, but also what is important. And he, I mean, I would watch him from a distance, and also meeting him, and especially when we did the Cuba project, when you remember you were there. I flew out to New Brunswick with Piloto actually, and
I know.
Peter, and then he said, he looked at me and he says, "This is the guy who knows where to take this. Let's get behind him." And I said, I've been doing this for a while, and I think it's really important that we help those people out in more ways than one. Like, yes, the instruments, but also offer hope and build this, continue this bridge. How long it will last? It could be 2 years, it could be 50 years. I don't know. But the thing is that as long as hope is there, and also not just hope, but you're still working on something as musicians, and your father got that. And I said, wow, we're not just talking about,
We're part of a community. We're part of a community, and you're either going to help your community along, or you're going to be a leech sucking off it. And I really right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I love that he wanted to be a part of what created and helped it along. And I mean, I completely understand that, and I'm really glad that he was the the beacon that I could follow, because understanding his mindset has really helped us as a company and as a group follow that same path and have that same mentality of, we're a group. It's one of the neat things about being in Canada is that
Yes.
it's a society. We are a group of people who are all together working in a direction as one community.
Yeah.
Right? And drummers, the same idea. We are one community who may be doing completely different things, but we are all going in a direction of expanding, of learning more, of creating more, of taking risks, of being much more artistic. I
Yeah.
love this industry. It's too much fun.
Yeah, no, it must be interesting for you to watch. Like, all of us will talk like gibberish about things what are important to us, and of course, to our dying days. But and like you say, no matter where you are in that particular spectrum, you're always interested in. And show me that. What was that about? There's like it's so endless, and there's so much going on. And we can create more. The moment somebody creates one thing, all of a sudden a new door opens up, and everybody wants to know, like, what was that? And we share it, right?
That's my favorite part. I love that most about drummers, because I mean, as I've been talking with other drummers and how other musicians in bands don't have that same, camaraderie with drummers. Although I do have to say, David Garibaldi said, trumpet players are okay. Don't worry about them. Okay, good. So trumpet players are nice guys, right? but drummers have this great camaraderie where it's like, how did you do that? Show me what it was. And nobody hides it. Let's share it. Let's show it. Let's think. And I mean, look, I've got theories about why it is. I mean, my arm is not the same length as your arm, so my instrument is different, all that type of stuff. But what it comes down to is that we all love what we do to a point where we want to see everybody do well in it, because it's exciting. It's fun.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And when you get a chance, you're always, and I guess the word curiosity comes to mind, because we're a curious bunch, and we have this curiosity thing that just pushes us forward, and we've never arrived, and we never arrive, because there's always something that, whether it's musically super interesting or technically super interesting, just to know about it and to see it being done, either in a musical way or in a technical way, or for some other reason, just because we can. And I think it's all good, to explore, and the fact that we never arrive, and I tell my students, is the day you think you arrived, call me.
I'll give you something new to work on.
Yeah, because that's impossible.
Just speaking about this kind of thing, people always ask me, it's like, well, what's the difference? Some of the differences between when you Sabian started and nowadays. So, well, when we started in the industry, there were probably different sizes, weights, and finishes, maybe 300 different types of cymbals that you could choose from. And that's everything from a 24-inch down to a 6-inch, and different weights. That's what the choices of voices were. That was it. Just before COVID, there were about 3,800 different types of sounds.
Wow.
I know. And I look at it and go, oh, we kind of started that, didn't we? Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, and COVID certainly did a whole turnaround for everybody. I mean, the whole lockdown, the whole change of mindset. How did that affect you?
Actually, so COVID, because we're always working together on coming up with how to face any type of issue. We had a group of 7 people in our executive and management team that were talking about it, and we set up what I thought was a very smart way of approaching it. So we did well getting through COVID. Canada certainly was very helpful. The government itself said, if you have issues, we'll do what we can to help out, which was great. Really, it did help. Luckily, we didn't have to take much advantage of it, except for employment insurance. That was key, because we got to keep people without
Right.
running out of going out of business. But yeah, there were certain things that we had been talking about, like, for example, trade shows. Is that a big positive towards consumers? Because the people at the end are the ones that really make a difference. And sure, for retailers, did it make a difference for a trade show? Yeah, some, but the excitement of it was kind of waning. And so the idea of spending time and money and effort specifically towards a show, I'm using that as just an example, it went away, except for things like PASIC, where everybody's a percussionist and everybody wants to go because percussionists share. That's what we do. So that type of thing changed. We also looked at what we were offering, and there was a lot of things that we offered just because we always had, and thought, if only one person a year wants it, do we have anything that's similar? And then you find out, yeah, we've got like 8 cymbals that are almost the same thing. So for that one person would have to guide them towards one of the other 8. And usually they're very satisfied. So that kind of thing changed for us. Personally, what it did was I was driving every day or every week on a Sunday up to New Brunswick to the factory, working there until Thursday night, and then Thursday night driving home so I could be with my family. Getting across the border into Canada made me have to stay isolated for 2 weeks in a house out there, which was fine. I had a place up there. But I'd be up there for a month, and then I'd come home for a month, and I thought, this is so much easier than driving back and forth every week. I mean, I was putting on 50,000 miles a year on the car, and I know, and it
Wow.
was killing me.
Wow. Wow.
So, COVID, although it was a horrible, terrible thing, had some silver linings to it, just because it broke people's mindsets of being in a rut. It changed the way that we were thinking. And to me, that type of change, that type of disruption, as long as it's done responsibly, is a good thing.
Right. Right.
Mm.
What are the things from a point of view of education that you would like to see more of?
Oh.
Education in the larger sense. I have my thoughts about that, and certainly everybody has. But from where you're standing,
Well, so SEN, the Sabian Educator Network.
yes.
Okay, so with Dom, he and my dad were great buddies. With Dom, he and I were talking about this issue that we had, where there was only a 30% retention rate amongst students of drum kit. And I thought, well, that's crazy. If you sit down and start playing a drum set, and especially to me an acoustic kit, how could you not just fall in love with it? You're feeling that energy coming back. You're moving. Everything's good. You're making some sound. You're should be really enjoying yourselves. So Dom and I started looking at different issues. And the first one we decided to tackle was the idea that people learn differently. Each person has a different style of education, what works effectively with them, what can retain their attention. And if the method that we were using was only hitting 30% of the people and we were losing the other 70, there needed to be more discussion about the other 70%. What is it that we're missing in the way that we're teaching that these people really want? And so that's SEN was set up around the idea of giving educators more viewpoints, more perspectives on how to teach, and how to teach to people who learn differently than what the current method has been. And I do think that we have seen a lot of success in that. So that each person learning differently was something that needed to be addressed, and I think it is starting to be addressed. The other thing that gets me is, and we haven't really started on this one yet, but I'm talking with PAS about how we can affect change in this area, are people who are, say, like, for example, a flautist, and they've gone through university, they've taken 1 semester of percussion, 1 semester of strings, 1 semester of all these different instruments, but when they become teachers, educators, in grade school, high school, even in some colleges, they don't understand how to teach to a percussionist. And so it's not that they look at a percussionist and go, I don't like the percussion. It's just they don't know how to do it. So there is always a built-in fear about something that you don't understand or don't know how to do. And so what we're trying to do is figure out a way that PAS can put together different levels of education for that type of person. So somebody who's not a percussionist can learn how to teach, learn what to teach, why it's important, this lesson, how this lesson should go, and what success sounds like as far as that lesson's concerned. And so that's to me, that's the next step that needs to be taken, because if you can get people, not only are you teaching drum kit players how to enjoy more, but you're also teaching people in grade school, high school, and middle school how to enjoy it more. We're going to have a lot more percussionists out there. And to me, there's nothing more fun than sitting down behind a kit, even if you're doing it just at home and it's just a hobby. So what? You're still having a blast playing drums. Keep going.
Yeah. And one thing, you brought up an interesting point, because I used to teach the percussion techniques class at McGill University for the educators. So I know exactly what you were talking about. And of course, they take a semester of strings, a semester of brass, a semester of percussion. But the percussion is actually 4 or 5 different areas. So you can't put them, we put them all together because we can. But in that context, we shouldn't, because in one semester, for those students of teaching, who will become future teachers, to learn about timpani, mallets, the mallet world, the drum set world, the world percussion, anything like the metallophones of all kinds, and to learn those different things. I mean, for us, it's a lifetime. How could you possibly, in 3 months, in 13 weeks, do this? And I would break my head, and I would offer extra courses, extra time at my studio. Say, guys, anybody want to come to my studio? I mean, of course, I got into a little bit of trouble. He says, no, Aldo, you can't do that for insurance purposes. And so I tried to push the program to include, but structurally, that's always been a challenge, because I think to non-percussionists or non-drummers, non-percussionists, I don't think they really understand what we're really talking about. Yeah. Right? And so there's got to be a way, and I think, with PAS, maybe take it outside of that box and treat it differently, because it is. I mean, a percussionist plays even any instrument that's not defined by anything else is a percussion instrument suddenly.
I know.
Right? Just cymbals alone, Andy. I know. Just cymbals alone, playing cymbals or learning to play, that's a lifetime in itself. I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole, but I mean, you're right about the education in that sense. I mean, it should start earlier, of course, and perhaps in a different way, and offering different resources that we hadn't thought of before or offered before. And people have to be open to asking the question, well, what could that be? Rather than saying, we won't have the budget, we don't have the time. Usually it's because they really don't understand, so they won't know how to ask it, right?
Well, that's it. It's like, yeah, if you don't understand it, then it suddenly becomes, I can't say fear, but it's darn close, right?
Yes, of course, because then it's engaging, and then you're taking someone into a territory where they're either uncomfortable or they're so engaged in something else that they can't let that go for the sake of this,
Yeah.
for the reason of the structure that they're working in. I mean, but I am sure there are ways that those things can address if people just become tenacious about it and understand it and think for the long term, right?
Yep.
I'm curious about. There's been a big push in electronic drums, and I have a really hard time with that whole thing to begin with,
Yep.
and also playing on plastic, you know,
Hmm.
and some people think it's okay, and it's but it's we know it's not, because the touch, the what you're playing on the instrument, you cannot possibly have on playing on a practice pad that's actually you're not playing on, it's responding to a trigger. And
Hmm.
then the plastic replication of these instruments. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I understand why electronic drum kits are proliferating, and mostly it's because people want to play, but they don't want to be loud. And sure, you're in a city, you're in a house, you're crowded, and you want to be able to play and practice without, scaring the neighbors. Um, Certainly makes sense that way, but I do have an issue with it's. So I call it the beaten dog syndrome. If a dog is beaten every day and left outside, that's what it thinks normal life is. Until somebody comes along, pets it, feeds it, and makes it warm, then it goes, "Oh, wait a minute, there's this too," which to me is kind of people playing the drum kit, the electronic drum kit, are kind of like those beaten dogs. They don't understand that there's a whole different world out there until they try an acoustic kit. They can feel that energy coming back and forth. The bounce is different when you're hitting the cymbals. It's a completely different story that way, because electronic cymbals, every iteration I've seen so far has just not come close to the feel. Absolutely not the feel, and certainly not the sound. So uh, I see them as an interesting way of practicing, and certainly as an augmentation to an acoustic kit. But as replacing an acoustic kit, um, I think the only way that's going to happen is if those, quote, beaten dogs decide that that's what they like for life. And I just feel badly for them because they're
Yeah.
missing so much.
Yeah, and that would be part of the education process. I mean, I don't
Mm.
think you can replace them, but some people in their minds they can, because I go through this all the time when people come, new students who come here at the academy or come and see me, and say, listen, we have neighbors, and I say, don't jump on that wagon just yet. Let me show you how you can get real instruments, but
Mm.
that take down the decibels,
Right.
and it'll make a difference. And you can do an A/B thing. You put on something temporarily, but then you have to learn to play the real instrument. Because I have students who come here who say, Aldo, I want to start playing drums. I just got a beautiful $10,000 electronic kit, the latest, greatest.
Oof.
And every week I see the student struggle because
Mm.
it takes him half an hour to get comfortable, to get the sound. These things are like he's not used to hearing these instruments, and I say, but now it's like somebody who plays on a piece of wood with colored notes. These are the C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, or you have a real piano where you
Mm.
actually play the piano and you learn the touch, you learn the relationship that you have with this
Yeah.
is not the same. So
Mm.
if you're learning this, you have to be on the real instrument to know how to build that relationship and to build your sound on that instrument, because everybody will sound different. But if you're playing wood or plastic or something with that's cutouts, it's never going to happen. Mentally, perhaps, but you're never going to recognize that sound. You're not going to develop it.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of like karaoke, right? It's like, well, you are just trying to emulate a sound, not your sound. No, you're not trying to create anything. You're not putting any of your own tone into it. There's no nuance. It's just uh, you're just singing the same tune,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's nothing really much to it.
Interesting. Yeah, this is an ongoing thing, and I prove it all the time. But I want to change the subject for a second. It would
Okay.
be interesting. Would be interesting to have your feedback, not just feedback, but your experiences having grown up in a cymbal making family, and all the people who have not come at you, but you've come across, who've been in the community, in the industry, and all the funny stuff that you had to deal with, all the crazy things that come up, and you say, "Oh." Any, I'm sure, especially since you're one of the top cymbal makers on the planet,
Hmm.
and so you're coming across all kinds of situations or something that someone does that is funny and to be remembered, and um, anything
Well,
that comes up, Andy.
I can give you like two sides to that. One is growing up. You sit around the kitchen table, and you'd hear all these stories about things that were going on, and it wasn't long before I started saying to myself, I'm learning about some of the industry and some of the feeling of the industry, but I'm really not learning the industry. And then I saw cautionary tales of other family businesses where they were doing really, really well, but the third generation, for whatever reason, believed that when the artists were telling him, "You guys, you're the best," that they weren't thinking, "Well, yes, with you, but I still have to learn how to run this business." They figured, "I got this. I know what I'm doing because I've got all these friends." That's not running a business. That's you really have to put the time in and the effort and the humility of saying, "I don't know what's going on. I have to be taught." Um, at the same time, once you do start to learn, and somebody says something like, we're going to have a um, road reps, and they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and if you've already done that job, which I decided I wanted to do every single job I could from the beginning, from the bottom to the top, so that when I did get to a position where I had leadership role, if somebody said something that I thought was insane, either way, I'd be able to say, that's not going to work. And I can tell you why, because when I did it, right, that kind of thing, because
Right,
how many
right.
times did I hear my dad say, when I was on the road, I thought, oh, there you go. He not only does he know, he's experienced it, so he definitely gets it. A couple of times I had one guy who was our VP of marketing, and he said some things that would make people in our business fighting against each other in Sabian. And I gave him a look like, huh? And he goes, "Don't raise your eyebrow at me." And I said, "Well, do you understand that you're going to have that group fighting this group to get this to happen, and they're going to be doing it for?" And after a little bit, he's like, "Yeah, I suppose you're right," because he'd never done those jobs anyway. But then, you know, knowing how to make cymbals and seeing people, like, for example, I went with John Teague, my brother-in-law. We went to China to look at some of the things that were over there, because we were looking at different gongs and how to make them, how to get them, that type of thing. And we saw this one factory where the people were taking out a casting that was warm, not hot, a warm casting, and hammering it from casting form with the hammer from, and I'm looking at it going, that is completely insane, because that's not how you make a cymbal. That's not how you make a gong. You heat it and press it and make it thinner and thinner and thinner to the point where now you can hammer it. But these guys thinking that they were going to get away with the idea of, we're not showing them how we do it, we're going to hammer the casting from the beginning. Come on, kids. Done this
Interesting.
for a couple of years. I know that ain't going to work. And then I had another guy tell me, he said, it's absolutely impossible for anybody to actually hand hammer a cymbal. And I thought, really? So for like 385 years, what's been going on in the family? How have these cymbals been made? Are you saying that we had press machines back in 1620 that, what we didn't know about it, pneumatic hammering? Interesting.
Wow, wow.
Is
But
that the
the
type of question you were asking?
Yeah, but I mean, in a lot of this goes back to Turkey, right? When
Oh yeah.
the guys were hammering, how hot would they get those that metal?
Oh, well, actually, they did get it pretty hot because they'd use hardwood, right, and which can burn hot, and they'd use billows and get that really cooking. The thing was that it's like the amount of cymbal that they or amount of cymbals that they can make in a day vastly smaller than what we can do with today's technology. But yeah, that heat that up. Okay, so I went to Turkey too, and while I was over there, a couple different things. I was watching these guys working in a factory. Now, 1600 degrees is pretty freaking hot. But when you actually are melting the copper and tin, it's 2100 degrees. It's so hot that when we'd put a little piece of scrap in at the top of this molten metal, if it was not dry, it would, whoop, and that tiny little bit of moisture, I saw a little bit of this thing land on one of the guys in the melting room here and go all the way down that hot 2100 degree metal, go all the way down his back. And he was out the door and in the snow faster than I could blink because that's some freaking hot stuff. But these guys over in Turkey are standing there in nylon track suits with sandals on, pouring this stuff into the casting form. And I'm looking
Wow.
at it thinking, oh my God. 2 points there. One, sandals. Are you out of your mind? You make one spill and now you're not bronzing your shoes, you're bronzing your toes, ding dong. And the other thing was that those tracksuits made out of nylon, you got a spark,
You're
suddenly
done.
you're naked. Those things catch on fire.
Wow.
They're gone.
Wow.
So I talked to them about it afterwards and they were all like, don't worry about it. We're fine. Like, okay, macho is one thing. Burned, that's a separate issue. You guys are gonna have to work it out.
That's a barbecued cymbal maker.
Oh man, I
Wow.
still it's still when I see those guys at trade shows, I'm like, have you put on boots yet? No, we don't need boots. Oh my God, guys, this is dangerous. People
Wow.
die doing this. Actually,
Wow.
that's another thing with the family secret. The way you do the family secret, you can do it to a point where because we're taking this hot metal, in out of the oven, 1600 degrees, putting it into rollers and compressing it. But we also have to put water on the rollers so that they don't heat up and expand, so it changes the thickness of what we're getting at the end. You're taking a very hot piece of metal, compressing it with water, which is how you make a steam explosion. If you don't do enough of the family process, it's going to explode. And there have been people in Bulgaria and I think in Mexico that tried it. And one of those groups had somebody who it exploded and killed them. So yeah. So the threshold of entry is actually pretty high, right? Because you have to know how to do that. At the same time, you can do the family process enough so that you don't die, but there's only two companies that know how to do it and only one family that knows how to do the whole thing to the point where now the energy in the cymbal can transfer itself much more freely than it can in any other. So like, for example, the Turkish cymbals use our family formula to a point where they won't explode, but they don't understand how to get that energy to transfer in the cymbal really, really easily. And that's why you get more of a cacophonous sound. And it sounds like, I call it kind of like spoiled milk. It's sort of, yeah, it's there, but it's like, it's just, it's off. Whereas with the complete family um, uh, formula, the process, you end up with a sound that is much more clean and much more beautiful and has a little bit more mellowness to it. At the same time, you can have that punch up and give you a real sharp attack at any time you want because that energy is flowing freely inside the cymbal.
Wow.
Bit of a segue there, hey?
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. No, no, thank you. That's amazing. Because I was going to ask you about this secret formula and method of doing it. How secretive is it, and how particular is it, or is it just common sense or scientific sense?
If you looked at it and saw it happening, you'd say, oh, it's just common sense. But there are certain nuances that have to happen that take it, like I was saying, beyond the I'm not going to die to the now I can really have that energy transfer quite well. And
Interesting.
and luckily the people who were watching that happen back, 60 years ago in Istanbul, never quite understood those nuances. So as far as they were concerned, to them it's just the logical, A and B and then you're done. Whereas they're missing C, D, and F.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that opens up a whole new set of possibilities. So, because then my question is, and I'm sure most of us would ask this question, say, okay, so a company is building instruments. So
Yep.
it's like a car company. Say, here's the model we're having out now. This is what we propose that you drive. Or is it, here's a bunch of people saying, hey, why don't we have this? And now that this is developed, or I've had this experience, I need to hear this sound. So is it from the bottom up or top down is basically what I'm saying.
You mean innovation as to
Yes,
why we do what we do?
exactly.
Almost everything, almost everything comes directly from conversations that we have with our artists and with people that we meet at, say, places like PASIC, consumers, retailers, people who are telling us what the, uh, to use the word, what the zeitgeist, the sound zeitgeist is out there. What are people looking for, right? And we try to take all of that information, and if it's coming from one single source, that, like, for example, like with Dave Weckel, when we came up with his cymbals, we were directly in conversation with him being up at the factory or being away, so that we had that one source. But if it's coming from the community, the only way to ensure that we are getting closer or have hit the target that was presented to us by the community is to give them little trials. So we'll figure out which stores had the most input, for example, which retailers, which consumers, which artists had the most input into what we have come up with, and we'll send it to them and say, try it out and tell us what you think. Because it is very presumptuous to think that we can make and present the sounds that we want and think that that's going to be what is the what is the zeitgeist for performers, for players. That's just, to me, that really, there's a lot of ego, and I'm not. That's not what we're here for. We're not here to say, look at what we can do. We're here to say, what do you want, and how do we, how have we done making that? So yeah, everything is done in concert with as many people as we possibly can.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it also,
Yeah.
and I think that's good because music changes. I mean, we had, from the big band era, and then all of a sudden you have the rock and roll, and then the Beatles come along, and then in the '60s, the music changed, and then all other styles of music have come into play, and people develop ideas from those things, and the more creative license we give ourselves, then you say, well, I had to make this thing because it's not out there. I mean, I
Yeah.
do that all the time. I make things up, and every once in a while I'll say, can somebody make this? But it's good to have people open and having channels that are open. Not everybody's like that, I can assure you.
Yeah, which I just don't get, because I mean, what are we servicing at that point? Are we servicing art, or are we servicing our ego? And
Right.
as far as I'm concerned, our ego, waste of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the forward motion of everything. It's with change. I mean, change is also aesthetics. Aesthetics
Yeah.
have goes
Yeah,
through a
it can be.
change, right?
Mm.
And I'm sure you have stories about that. That one day when this is what we have. This is our aesthetic at this moment.
Mm.
But as things develop and more exploration goes down, more music, more experience, the aesthetic changes. So something that sounded good, like for me, certain sounds I still remember. I mean, I remember all these sounds that I had when I was playing when I was 20 years old. I hear that sound now, I'm repelled because it means absolutely nothing,
Yeah.
right? Because now I hear something else, and in the context that I'm playing, and with the people that I'm playing with, and the music that I happen to be involved with at the time. Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because it's an audio perception of things. You know how we perceive. That's a whole interesting thing for me. How the perception of sound, how people, you say the one thing on the one side, how people learn. That's one thing, but then the perception of sound affected by what you've been listening to, and also don't forget we've been listening in the past to huge sound systems. Now we hear music through these little,
This kills me. This kills me, like this is where my music is now.
Yeah, that's always.
So talking about that kind of thing, perception of sound. Nor Hargrove, who for
Of course,
years
of course.
was our
Yes,
R&D
great
guy
guy,
and
great guy.
production and is still a great friend and he's on our board of directors because we won't really let him go, right?
He's a brilliant guy. Don't
But
let
he
him
and I
go.
we're trying some stuff out. We were listening to we were talking about what we liked most about either HH or AA and AAX, and he was saying that he really liked the high tones that come out of the AAX, and I was saying, man, I just love the depth of tone that you can get out of an HH, and he said, let me try something, and he took out his iPad and he started playing different tones, boop, 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 that kind of thing, and he was saying, okay, so tell me when you can hear it, and he was going along. He said, okay, I'm out, and I kept going higher, and then I went, a couple points beyond him, and then, okay, now I can't hear it anymore. He goes, okay. Then we went down, and I fell out before he did. He went farther down. So here's the weird part. I like deeper tones, but I can't hear them as well as he can.
Wow.
He likes higher tones, and I can hear them better than he can. So is this the type of thing where we love what we can't have? Interesting. I just thought that was a very interesting, experiment that he tried out there.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah,
No, absolutely, absolutely, and I could see that, and also it's also context too, because sometimes I love the HHX, for example, and the really dark side, the sounds, and that they don't spread, all of these things. But in certain music, you need that high pitch because
Yep.
because in the spectrum, if it's a lower one, then it's actually in the way. So you want it to be placed in the specific place in the audio spectrum so that it makes sense for that music. I mean, maybe not everybody consciously thinks about that, but I think ultimately you do. I mean, if you have any degree of artistry, you would say, "Oh, I like that," or "I don't." Some of us can actually explain it, or say, "This is this decibel." I mean, that's a little far, but that's the explanation, scientific explanation as to why one frequency would outdo another, and why one actually helps and supports another one.
Yeah.
It's
I agree. I mean, it's kind of like in the taste. Some people like sweet, some people like salty, and it's got to, you have to find out what it is that really turns you on. And
Yeah.
the music that you're playing, it's going to call for a certain range of sound. At the same time, it's your voice. So you figure out within that range what you want to say, how you want to express yourself.
Yeah. And that, of course, changes as you get older, different taste, everything else. So nothing is fixed in stone. That's interesting. And I know that most people don't know that you play drums. And we had this conversation once about you playing drums.
Don't tell anybody.
No? You don't want the gig, right? We were going to just offer you the...
I don't want anybody to say, show me your technique, because my technique is terrible.
No, but it's nice to know that you are a drummer at heart, and you played drums when you were a kid, and then of course, I mean, now you probably don't even have 5 seconds to even think about it, but at least you played drums.
I've got a house up in Canada with just me and a drum kit, so yeah.
Nice. Well, that's it. I know a lot of people who have drum sets in their office because at home they don't get home. So
yeah.
so it's the other side.
Generally, it's the same idea. That's my office in New Brunswick, right?
Got it. Yeah, and it's, I mean, having people in the industry who are, and this is another thing. Many of the companies that have been established over the years and over the decades, a lot of the people who started it are not family businesses. Now they're corporate, and less control over what the original mission was, and have kept that original mission to some degree, as much as possible. But it's nice to see, like, the thread of the people from the origins who are still there. Not a lot these days. I'm seeing, because I grew up with all those guys. Like, as a
You
kid.
grew up with Vic, you grew up with Remo, you grew up with my dad, and these guys, you probably wouldn't think of it as much with Remo, because he seemed like a very staid person, and he did keep himself in, quite in control. But when he got together with my dad and with Vic, oh man, they were a comedy team. They could have been the Three Stooges. They were all that good.
Oh, I watched them at the bar a few times.
Yeah.
It was the greatest experience watching the stories, and they would go on and on. And it's funny because it was once Yolande, my wife, bought this pepper thing, and it was beautiful. You press on it, and I always had this frustration. You could never have a really good pepper cruncher, And
Yep.
so I got this, and I said, Yolande, where did you find this? And she said, well, I found us at the store, blah, blah, blah. And then in the local newspaper, in the Gazette, one day, they had this story about this stick manufacturer who was making these, and it was Vic Firth.
Yeah.
I know
Vic Firth is the only person I know of who had not only did he have drum set and percussionist endorsers, he had chefs.
That's insane.
I know.
When I
particularly,
learned,
it was perfect because a guy like Emerald Lagasse, whose mother wanted him to be a musician, but he decided to go rogue and become a very famous chef.
beautiful.
He could do both. He was a drummer. He should have played, right?
Yeah. But that was, I mean, when I saw you laughing, I said, oh, he knows probably better than me. When I first learned that, Andy, I was like, it was a shock. I said, what? And it was beautiful. So I called Vic, and I said, Vic, you held this back from everybody. I had no idea, and I'm usually up to date, and I'm watching, paying attention, and I felt so like out of it for a moment. I said, how come I didn't know this? And so he laughed, and he says, no, I've always been interested in it, but this factory that we took over, actually we're making some of these things, so we decided to carry it on and take it further.
Yep.
And then I said, but in the whole culinary business, like what? He says, well, what you don't know is, he says, my mother was Italian, so I grew up in the kitchen.
Yeah.
with that whole. Okay, so now I said, now I understand. Now I'm good at it. Now that makes sense. But what that taught me, Andy, was some of us have other not interests, but not these closed windows, closed minds, and that says a lot about a person who has space in their mindset for anything else that makes sense to them, which ultimately they're all interrelated. Like food and music for me are, they're interrelated. There are nuances, there are differences, there's taste, choice, and just being able to be open to those other kinds of things. It's what would I call that? A Renaissance type thinking, which is
I was thinking entrepreneurial, but yes, on a Renaissance, really, it fits that quite well. Yeah. Yeah, that's again, that's the Remo, that's the Vic, that's my dad, that kind of mindset where, yes, this is the box in which I work, but at the same time, there's no walls on this box. Why should there be? What else can we do? How more creative can we be on different things?
Yeah.
Yeah, Vic was just, he loved making those things, and he had this artist relations guy in New York, Marco Socoli. You ever meet Marco?
Of course, Marco. I've known him. Marco. Before you say your story, I knew Marco before all of those guys because I used to study in New York, and when I was at
You did?
university, I used to go to New York every month, and I
Yeah.
would go to Sam Ash,
Hmm.
and he was working at Sam Ash at the store, so I would buy
Yep.
things at Sam Ash, and I knew him then, and then we got to know each other in the industry later. So, yeah,
And Marco
he
was
was.
great because he'd say, like, he'd come into town and we'd both be working with the same artist, and he'd go, "Hey, they're going to be on at like 9 o'clock. What do you eat?" And it's like, "Okay." He says, "Come on, let's go get something to eat." He said, "Sure. Where do you want to go?" He goes, "I got an endorser. We're going to go here." And like, "You have an endorser? Who has?" "Oh, yeah, of course. You've got the and he himself, wider, wider, wider. Think more, get expansive. Yeah, brilliant,
Oh
brilliant in his
no, no!
own way.
Marco was incredible, and of course, him speaking Italian, and I'm Italian. I was born in Italy, and so I knew all the guys in Italy, like Tullio Di Piscopo, the great
Yeah.
Italian drummer. He's a friend. We actually worked together a few times, and so it was nice to see that somebody on this side knew the guys on the other side. So I felt better. I said, okay, so now we're paying attention because it's not all in one place. It's a universal thing. So Marco was very smart that way.
Oh yeah, yep, brilliant. Yeah, he recently passed. I don't know if you know that,
Yeah. Oh
but yeah,
yes.
yeah. But yeah, we used to have these conversations with him because he spoke Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, English, of course. He had another like some part of a Yugoslavian dialect that he could speak, and he had, I think, a total of like 7 different languages. And I kept saying, "Why are you in artist relations? You could be doing so many things." He's like, "I love it. It's fun. Yeah."
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
I mean, he
No,
loved
no.
the creativity. He loved hanging out with musicians, and I can't blame him a bit for that because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, he was an energy. Oh
Oh man,
wow.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd walk in. I remember the last time I saw him was when I did the Chicago Drum Show.
Hmm.
And so I walk in, he says, "Oh, there you are. Here, grab this. Try this." you know. And I said, "Oh, that's great." And so I got it all set up for you. Come over here. Let's go eat.
Sweet.
Oh
Oh
no, no.
man.
He was yeah, you miss guys like that with that
Yeah.
energy, positive energy, and it was always good. But you had to be running. You couldn't walk with Marco.
No, 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 definitely not. It's talking about that. There's I look at the industry nowadays, and I see there are still a bunch of entrepreneurial people out there. They're having a harder time because there are companies that are just ensconced in certain places, and that the threshold to being not just entering, but to being a contender is very high. But this friend of mine, Ron Manis, we were both together on the NAM board of directors, and so we'll go every year when they have a new 8 members of the board, and our barometer, what we look at is how many people new on the board are standing there for their photos in a pair of jeans. Because if you're in a suit, you're probably a suit, right? Which means, do you really get what we're doing here, or are you looking at it as a numbers game, and this is how we make more money doing this, and you're really missing the whole point? I mean, yes, you do want to make money so you can stay in business. That's kind of,
That's
it's important,
obvious. Yeah.
but it's not the objective. And that's where Ron and I look at this and think, boy, there's too many suits in this group. We got to keep an eye on these people. Watch out who they are.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, the one thing that's really nice is people who are on the creative end of things and always promoting the creative, because ultimately
Yep.
that's what pulls us forward. And sometimes when we get into, for lack of a better word, a rut of design, social, whatever it is the creative mind that pushes that, because it knows no barriers. I mean,
Yeah.
I just stare at the wall and until I can move it. Some people
Well,
say,
now,
well,
wait a minute. Some things can't be done.
uh,
You have to find a different way around that wall, Al.
oh yeah, yeah. No, you stand there long enough to figure it out.
Yeah.
We say that.
Just staring at it isn't going to make it move.
Well,
Find a door.
yeah, or you find a way. You say, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this,
Yes.
and so you stop for a moment, you reflect, and then that creative mind figures it out. Others
Yeah.
say, okay, can't be done. We're going that way.
Yeah.
That's another approach, but it's good to have people and companies that are there for the long run, and the fun too, because it's not just hard work. It's also a lot of fun, and it makes things worthwhile for us to
I think I've met my best friends in this industry just because it is so much fun. And really, and you know, you're right. You got that shared passion, and maybe not everybody is a drummer or percussionist. Maybe it's just music is the shared passion, but it's there.
yeah, yeah, and that's something that will never go away. I mean, there's a famous quote that says, a village without music is a dead place, and that's so important because music will never go away. Some people are naysayers. Nah, it'll be just different, expanded in a different way, but music has to be.
Look. There have been times when music has gotten really boring, and it's turned into sort of formulaic. But then somebody decides that they're going to change the whole paradigm, and they do. And so, yeah, I mean, right now I look at music and think it's good. There's some nice things out there, but I don't see that real, artistic risk being taken a lot. And certainly not in a way that has become well publicized.
Yeah.
But it's coming.
Oh yeah, and I think that's the key. Whereas before we can see many things in a smaller space. For example, when the Beatles came out, I mean, there were 3 TV stations, and everybody watched those things, and the media was X, Y, and Z. So that all the information went through those channels. Now it is 360. It's like the planets. It's 360, but deep in all those different ways. So it's probably there, but not in what we call the mainstream, or those people who control it for business reasons. So we don't see it until
we have to go find it.
Yeah, that's it. Or something happens, and all of a sudden your head turns, and there it is, or something comes up. But it is there, and I think the human mind could not let that happen. It's just too important, too universal, and it's that thread that keeps humanity going in the first place, right?
Well, there's too much curiosity and too much emotion. You can't just let it sit.
Yeah.
There's always going to be growth.
Yeah. No, that's it. And boy, I mean, we can go on for days and weeks, but
I know we're probably going over and over and over the same point, right?
But no, but it's exciting. I every day I wake up, I say, okay, I'm walking, I'm moving, I can play. Okay, I'm happy again as I wake up. Anyway, but I do want to thank you, Andy, for being on and sharing your stories and your journey in this, in this shaping your journey.
Geez, yeah. Look, I enjoy talking, especially about cymbals and about music and about anything to do with the creative side of it and how we help and can be a part of that. I just get jazzed up. I mean, look, when we started, I was probably a lot less energetic than I am now, but I got juiced. You got me juiced.
Yay! And as I always say, Andy, to be continued.